At time.
Text, David Berg.
So,
The music
welcome
that my
everyone.
wife and I do 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 do.
IT Professionals Conference.
Yeah, that would be good. So welcome everyone to today's session looking at how LLMs might help your work, being led by Phil Jochimson. There will be time at the end for Q&A. This session also will have some breakout rooms, which Phil will be talking to us about. Speaking of Phil, I've known Phil for a couple of years now, and the one thing that I can say about Phil is he is always willing to learn new things and then share what he has learned with us. Um, Phil has been a presenter at every single one of these IT professional conferences, all 10 years. He's been a great contributor all these years, and now we get to hear a little bit from him today. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Phil.
The No Hype Framework to Structure Your Work. Phil Jochimson.
Thanks that intro, Dave. Yeah, no, I've done presentations at each of the IT professional conferences, and a couple other venues and different events as those come up as well. Uh, the I definitely like if I run into something very interesting or a unique way to look at something, I do like sharing that with more people. And this is one of those things. There was a session earlier this year that ProSci, the folks who make the ad car change management framework had in coordination with EDUCAUSE, basically like how looking at how what kind of change management stuff would you want for, again, change management as in helping humans change would be necessary. And they had a very specific part here that, and again, I'm gonna, as a no hype framework, we immediately get to this is the answer. So this is the main thing I found here. These three general buckets of tasks and trying to think about that as what's the stuff that as a human, I'm always going to be the one doing it. What kind of stuff might I collaborate with or review after an LLM gives me an answer back? And then are there things that now with these new tools, we have a capability of not having to do manually by hand before? So that's again not bearing the lead here. This is the thing. We're going to go into this. As far as the breakouts, just for folks who not up for doing a breakout this morning, that's fine. That's later. I've got about maybe 15, 20 minutes of stuff here, just going through some examples, some thoughts behind why I think this is going to continue to work and continue to be a useful mindset or frame of mind. Um, yeah, going forward. So we'll get into it.
Agenda.
Yeah, right. So the agenda, as I mentioned, the practice and interaction time is going to be in the last half there. These are rough times for how much time we're going to spend on that, but we're going to give as much of that as we can. So we're going to stop the recording when we get to that portion also. So again, think about that. The stuff we're doing now with these slides, those will be in the recording. So we've got, got a couple of things there. Let's go in. All right. So all aboard the hype train. This is basically my problem of seeing news headlines and how that doesn't exactly line up with the capabilities as advertised, things like that. So um some things that come to mind, right? Like the everybody's laying off everyone and replacing them with AI. Klarna is a great example. That's huge news story. Everyone was just like, wow, that's amazing. They laid off 700 people because they're so efficient with their AI. And then, of course, the follow-up a couple years later is that they hired them back. Turns out, just firing people and thinking that the model is going to replace it, that wasn't a great answer for them.
Hype Train.
The AGI conversation I think has been again hilarious, where it's always some number of months out, right? In 2023, plenty of news articles about like, oh, it's right around the corner, it's going to happen in a few months. Let's see, yeah, 75% of programs replaced by AI. Agentic AI is the next big thing. Um, I liked this headline, right? The one about tech CEOs are apparently suffering from AI psychosis. That sort of makes sense, even just from the standpoint of some of the research we had out there too, where it was the folks in management or higher level leadership positions were much more likely to have a positive view of the efficiency gains that were possible than the people who then actually tried to do it. So the workers on the ground, who were actually starting to try to use these tools found that there wasn't like, oh, I get, 20 extra free hours a week, or I can complete all my work in 5 hours for the whole week. So this actually sort of makes sense. Want to keep you in mind, critical thinking is still required. We need to think about when we use technology to try to solve a problem. We're going to try to match again the technology to a problem that makes sense for it to solve. Uh, a lot of the chatbot interactions, I know this is incredibly common to hear, right? That, oh, it's mad. It's like, I don't understand it, but like it seems like it's magic. Like, how does it know how to do this, right? And so, like all things that are new technology, it's only magic if you don't understand how it works. And for you to educate, it's not topic of this session, but for you to educate yourself on actually what is some of the math behind these things, is a really important step, because it really is going to help you figure out what makes sense. And then lastly, just this thinking about incentives. The folks who are saying some of these messages where it's like there aren't going to be any programmers anymore, like, we won't need an IT staff or something like that. It's like, who's saying it? What incentives do they have to say it? Is it this AI washing phenomenon where the reason Oracle laid people off is so they could avoid sending money out the door on paychecks. And one of the traditional responses for Wall Street when you lay off people is that your stock goes up, because it's supposed to be an indication that the company is going to be just as good with less people and less expense. So therefore, the company is worth more money. And that's not always true. So, and then think about your own incentives. Is this the, fear of missing out, trying to avoid some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, things like that. So, questions to ask yourself, try to bust some of this hype up. You know, which jobs actually have high automation exposure? All right, think through that. Again, the source of the message, definitely consider that.
Hype buster.
If you see an announcement about something that's very interesting or sounds very provocative, sounds like the thing that people are, at least in their mind, it's like, are there any actual facts in that announcement? Are there references? Are there statistics? Is there, you know, does it start with a new study suggests that, and go find the study. Like, is that actually what the study suggests? And is it a suggestion? It's not even a thing done, at a higher level of proof. So incredibly common in the last couple of years that we've just seen what had been reputable news sources all over the place, just parroting exactly what an AI company press release was. So keep stuff like that in mind. All right, let's move on.
Towards action.
So we want you to move towards action and learning, right? I don't want you folks to be stuck in this like, I don't know what to do it. And again, this problem of, if you've been told that AI is for everything and no one's going to have a job, like, you don't know what to do, right? It seems confused. Like, where would you even start? So we want to try to have you folks move through this. Don't leave your brain at the door, please. And right, think so. If you once you've learned a little bit about what an LLM is and what it can do, how it's created, how it works, being able to, like we do with many things, pick a technology that makes sense to apply to a problem that it's actually well suited to address. Um, and so go for that. I know some folks who have done the just try everything, like just see if every task that I do at work, like, does it if I just try it with an LLM, does that help? I'll caution you to say that is an interesting experiment, because you might be surprised by how useful it is. But if you're doing it just because they said that everything can be done, you might be a little bit disappointed. Now, as usual, this is a fast-paced area, but I think if I think through the last couple of years, this framework would have been useful 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and should be useful in the years to come, because what we're doing is we're of course moving tasks from things that I might have assistance with, and as models improve, or as we find better use cases for things, there might be more that fall into that automation. Like, can it do this entire thing for me? Again, that we'll talk to this. So there's three buckets again. My work. So human-centered things that cannot be replaced by a human.
Framework.
Stuff that I think of, like actually meeting you folks in person or having a conversation online with other humans about things, right? Some building trust, developing campus relationships, working with customers to try to figure out what they actually need. Like, there's a lot of things that are going to be squarely in the human realm. And it's never not going to be that. With me work, there's some amount of dependence for an LLM. The idea is that you're doing something collaboratively. This I know there's folks like that have phrased things like you're using it as an assistant, or that you're maybe like an intern, something like there's some ideas like that, and there's some areas in there. And then the LLM dependence, the forming work, which is, are there things that we can actually delegate to it that actually makes sense, or that even though there are hallucinations, that the risk of it getting it wrong doesn't mean that we've done something tragic, like unenroll all students from a class or something. Um,
3 buckets of tasks by LLM dependence.
to think of, again, in the a little bit this newer, again, prior to the launch of ChatGPT, quote unquote, most things were over there in that realm of my work. So thinking like as a new set of tools appear, there can be more things that go into the next bucket, and then more things that go into the next bucket, right? Um, if you picked a model up now from 2022, this could the divide of what you would actually be reasonably delegating to the thing would be considerably different than it is today. And that's probably just going to keep happening, right? If we keep getting better and big, if better and bigger models like are able to do more work without making, with making less mistakes, there's still going to be mistakes. Um, that's going to be pretty useful. So I think, like I said, I think this is a pretty decent way for me to think about it. And I think it's gonna happen. So if you think about like, oh, if agentic AI is a huge change forward, it's like, well, no, it just means that maybe there's more things that go under that forming work column, right?
Hype.
So, and then right, the hype is that all tasks for work are have it do it for me, and that's why and that's not true. So just right off the bat, that's not true. And this, like I said, this is the most even-handed thing I've ran into that talks about that.
None. Human-centered.
Again, human-centered tasks. Uh, so a few examples here, right? The with me work, something like assisted things, a first draft, sometimes some summarization, something where it's human in the loop. I'm going to be reviewing the content that comes out of there. And then knowing that these are non-deterministic systems, right? Like I don't necessarily get the same answer every time. What kind of things, can I put in there? On that note, again, it is important to mention that there are ways to do automation that have deterministic outputs. From a technology person standpoint, one of the ones that come to mind is that there's a lot of things we put into continuous integration and delivery pipelines for software development that we actually want deterministic outputs. We want the same answer every time. We want, the linter to tell us that our formatting is wrong or that it fixes our formatting, and we want that the same every single time. And that's different than providing a chat experience as a customer, right? I might not, as a customer, I might not say the same thing every time. And it may not say the same thing in response every time.
Lots of dependence. Think non-deterministic automation.
All right. And then some other thoughts here, right? Are there certain tasks that you have that require a very high attention to detail, that require a high level of accuracy? Think about busy work. There's a bunch to be said there. Um, and then again, part of the like not leaving your brain at the door. This is I don't have a great way to describe this, but if you think about what you're trying to get done, are you going to be better at your job, more effective? Are the customers going to be happier, et cetera? Um, if you have gone through and done the hard work. And I guess I'll give one example. So if I was a brand new student in like elementary school or middle school, it's possible for me to open up a chatbot and ask it to write me a paper, right? But if I knew that college is a good thing, and even just jobs require skills like with language to be able to either speak or to be able to write concisely. And that I need to be able to create, compelling bits of whether it's emails or writing papers. I am going to be better off having done the hard work of learning how to go through the process of writing, of drafting and reviewing. And that's just one example. Programming would be another one, right? Like in theory now, I don't need to learn any languages at all. And I can program in all languages now equally or something, right? That's the pitch. Um, and if it's something where I'm going to be better off having done the hard work then I need to be actually still doing that, right? Um, and then back to the non-deterministic part, if you think about what tasks could be delegated, and that is, for me, it's like I think of, all right, if there was someone else on our team who I could have do this, that would be like my starting frame. Now, inside of that box of if it's another human I could delegate to, there's going to be a smaller box that is like maybe if I can figure out what kind of guardrails or what kind of guidance I'd be able to bound the task, maybe that's something that could be delegated to a model. And I do love this quote from Peter Drucker, just thinking about busy work. There's, there's definitely some articles I've read where it seems like the whole thing that they're trying to do is they're like, the reason you're going to be so much more efficient is all those reports that you don't care about doing and that are drudgery and are just busy work. You're going to be able to automate them. And there's nothing so worthless to do well as to do well that which does not need to be done at all. And I really appreciate that because this, for our organization, this is actually another one of those opportunities to talk about, hey, should we even be doing this? What value did somebody think we were getting out of making a report for the following thing? Or, what kind of things? And the answer is maybe the value isn't as high as some people thought. Or again, very commonly with things that feel like busy work, the value isn't so much for the person who generates or does the work, but it's for the person consuming it. And there might be opportunities then for that person to be given access to be able to create, for example, that report themselves. And so maybe this is a thing though, where as you look at it as busy work because you're like, this doesn't they're asking for this and I made this report, fine. Maybe that person can actually do the delegation, possibly with the assistance of an LLM, to do it themselves. And then it's not your busy work anymore, right? If they were the one that got the most value out of it, maybe it's a task that they can do.
Examples.
Okay, we've got a couple examples. These are pretty light, but then we'll get into the time where you folks are going to be able to work on some of this yourself. So as a student, things like group discussions, actually studying, right? So if I need to like actually get the information into my brain, that's going to be a thing I have to do, right? Some initial topic choices. So if I've got a paper I need to write on a certain thing, it's like the initial idea of what might I be doing? That's going to be stuff that I do. But with me, there's a lot of options here, of course. Maybe for the studying, I need, some flashcards would be a useful thing. So turning a stack of information, whether it's PDFs or documents or websites that are related to, the unit we're going through for classes, maybe creating flashcards for that is actually a pretty decent thing.
The
Um,
dependence chart reappears.
some of the stuff about like maybe there's some drafting just to get an idea of like what might this look like if I turned a couple of bullet points into sentences. But there's definitely still editing that needs to happen for humans to it needs to sound like you because if it's your work you need to be able to actually sound like you. For programming, draft pull requests, sometimes these things about writing suggestions for what is it like like analyze the tone of this email. Does it sound like I'm mad, right? Like I that's a decent thing to have as something to bounce some ideas off of. Forming work, I think there's some of these things about summarization, translation. Those things are spot on, right? It's like having consumed lots of language, its ability to try to use a smaller number of words and retain a lot of the meaning is a very useful thing. And as far as, for me, some of the stuff like being able to find some patterns in large amounts of data, there's certain capabilities that just being able to leverage compute against a data set that maybe I previously would have I never would have done the work because it would have been so much effort. It now becomes a possibility. So it's a student example. Just as a musician, gonna throw that one in there too. I had a little harder time trying to figure this one out because uh, I don't know. It's just there's something about this. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. But my work is like actually practicing an instrument, actually, singing something like that, right? Actually doing a performance, having some initial ideas about what I want for songs, things like that, and then get into the with me work. Maybe I've got an initial a melody, but I don't really know what I want to do for backing or accompaniment, and maybe that's something I could have it do. Rhyming suggestions, again, just having consumed lots of language, suggestions about that it has about how stuff rhymes. Great idea. Transcription would be another one too. Like, so turning audio, voice memos of me singing a melody into notes on a page or into MIDI information, for example. That could be something. Some kind of conversion stuff, and then even just maybe this thing about the formula work, like maybe just researching popular song topics if people are interested in. So cool. Well, that's what I have for the presentation portion.
Solo practice.
And again, if this morning, so this solo practice time, we're probably gonna stop the recording here, but this is gonna be you folks have a couple of minutes to just think about what you might do